Hi, welcome. Looks like this is our cozy little group tonight. I'm so glad to see y'all. How's everybody doing? Since we have such a small group, everybody just, I was planning on talking a little bit, but we'll probably have time for everybody to express themselves if they want to. Hi, Jeanette. It was kind of hard to, not hard, but I just sort of waited all day for the dropping in of what was going to be said. Um, Sometimes it just doesn't show up as readily as other times. And we had kind of put it out there as a continuation of the song that I gave a couple of months ago around um, the view, the condition beyond us versus them, the condition beyond division, which is basically what I'm always talking about. Hi, Lauren. Um, which is also the condition beyond self, because self is really the only division. Um, and I've kind of always strayed away from that particular description of it because I just don't know that it makes a lot of sense to everyone, no self. It's kind of like it can be sort of an endless conundrum for the intellect. But I think we can sort of imagine, even if we haven't actually had the experience of no division, no separation, because we've all had something in our lives that stood us still, whether it was something in nature or when our child was born or when our parent was dying or, something that captivated us so thoroughly and brought us so completely into the present moment that there was no division. There was no referencing going on and narrating going on because everything was completely present. So really, I'm always and kind of only ever interested in that. um, the attention and the life, you might say, became um, sort of almost unable to move into that past, present, future sort of mode that we carry around with us most of our lives. And it's really just a mode. That's all it is. It's a mode of operation. It's not a reality. There really is only ever now. And we can experience that. We can get it in more than just the imagination or the intellect, but the direct sense of it. When we recognize that not only is the moment continuously arriving, we can all see that. I mean, just try to stop the moment. It doesn't, the moment is continuously arriving. It's continuously arriving. Not only is it continuously arriving, but it's freely given. Isn't that something? It is here. It's not, it doesn't exact a toll. Here it is. It's freely given. And we so rarely, I think, trust that and really sink into it and sense that um, this moment will never come again. Here it is. Best moment, only moment, best moment, present moment, only moment. We've talked so much about the believer, the, as Dr. Hawkins would say, doer of deeds and thinker of thoughts. We've talked so much about it. And, you know, we all know the weight of that, the weight of it. It's like the nervous system and the amygdala and like all the, you know, brain stem stuff has come to sort of count on this conglomerate of belief, thought, opinion, idea, belief, emotion, belief, and mode of past, present, future, and the weight of that conglomeration as safety, as something that has to be happening. And it's been mistaken actually for life itself. Life itself, which is just really startling when you come upon that realization that that whole process, some might call it the ego, the psychological self, the self-referencing, self-consciousness, selfhood, has been mistaken for that which animates, the power that sprouts the seed, the power that ripens the peach, the power that gets us from a one-celled, a two-celled, you know, division to an embryo to a, you know, I mean, life, which here is experienced as uncaused love, but use whatever words you'd like. The great mystery, that which can't be named. Somehow, through some inheritance, some process, this self-consciousness that bends back upon itself to narrate itself into being, and throughout time, past, present, future, and, you know, the weight of all of that has become a false sense of life. And to the psyche and the nervous system and the physiology, if that starts to dissolve, fall away, even if there's glimmers beyond it, that self-identified piece of consciousness gets real freaked out. It gets freaked out. And so it instantly begins to amplify whatever story it's telling itself to keep itself front and center. It's a fixated, limited, contracted sense. It's not bad or wrong. It's innocent and misinformed and misidentified. And it is self-perpetuating. So we have to become more and more, as much as we possibly can, aware of these fixations and these contractions and these stories and narrations that we're believing, that we're lending our attention and belief to. Because the more we can bring a sense of open field listening, not heavy-handed judging listening, open field listening, like you would a friend, sensing into this gratitude and trust that comes when one realizes, wow, the eternal, everlasting continuum of right now. Sinking into that relaxing, honestly recognizing what we're contracting around and believing, and kindness. It's got to be kind. There has to be a sense of kindness. I've just never seen it work with, I mean, discipline, sure. You have to kind of hold yourself to a line. You can't just like, oh, like permissive. Um, that just doesn't happen that often. More often, we're just judging the crap out of ourselves and what we're not doing in this process. And the spiritual ego gets fed either through a deep sense of I'm not doing it correctly and everyone else is getting it, or another sense of like, I'm so great, I've already got it. Uh, so when we bring that open field listening, relaxed, at ease, even if the nervous system has a 5 alarm fire, there is a sense of ease. There is a sense of confidence. Ani calls it, the Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhists call it confidence. Where you get that confidence? Well, you get it in that the moment is arriving, the moment is arriving, the moment is arriving. The great animator, the creator, is giving, giving, giving. Every single moment is a chance for redemption and resurrection. The only place that that gets lost is when we grab onto those bags of, the stories and the limitations and the need to feel like someone, our insistencies, where we insist on things, our fixations. Beyond all of that is a real lightness of being. And if we continue to um, attend to that, it begins to really illuminate the whole process. I call it open field listening, but a lightness of being, a relaxed, kind, easy sort of way, even in sometimes the face of deep revelation. There can be periods of regret and grief because of the way we've lived our lives in service to um, something much smaller than who we essentially are. And that too is seen in this atmosphere of open kindness, open listeningness itself, and met very purely. And then it is free to return to love as love. It doesn't have to be held on to as an identified safety. We just begin to recognize, boy, I'm really insisting on this. I'm really insisting that reality be this certain way, or that reality was this certain way, and now it's not this certain way. I'm really insisting. And all that that brings to the table, we just start inquiring and looking like, what is that serving? What is going on here? And then if we really um, sincerely, without agenda, um, are able with that sense of like, I am here, here I am, and that's all I know. That's all I'm going to know in this situation as I'm looking and investigating and inquiring and being here for this insistency. That's the only thing I'm going to bring to the table as far as knowingness is here I am. I don't get to bring anything else. And let it unfold. Most of the time, if one truly is seated as the natural presence, as we know, the natural condition, the natural presence is self-liberating. It's self-liberating. So it will liberate. There's no bells and whistles. It just comes and goes. I don't know about you, but there, not so much now. Honestly, not so much now. But there was a period of time when a lot of it was going rather rapidly, rather quickly. Victimhood and all the insistent fixations around right and wrong and intellectual cynicism and snobbery. Oh dear. Whew, a lot of arrogance in that intellect. When a lot of that was leaving real rapidly, you know, there would be a split second of the sense of weightlessness, the reality of the glory, I'm going to say, of the present moment as it is without all of the weight. And then immediately there would be a grabbing because it was like, even though there was this sense of the relaxed well-being at easeness that's natural to our true nature, there was still enough of that fear. It's fear to real like, whoa, too much, too fast in a certain sort of way. We can't let go of everything all at once, I remember Audrey always saying, what do you think's going to happen? You're just going to be like a pile of mush on the floor. It's not what happens. I didn't totally know what he was talking about back then, but I get it now, like that I've lived through the process of uh, moving from separation into wholeness. I get it because there is so much of the conditioning that has, as we were talking about here at the beginning of the talk, has wound itself up in the idea that up and down, up and down, up and down storytelling, narrating, event experiencing is life, is the life force. Like that's actually life. That's what feels like Dr. Hawkins used to say, like the juice, juicy, the juice. And so it really would be, I see where Aji was going with it. He could sense the fear out there of like, okay, I'll let go of everything and then I won't be anything. Right. Exactly. That would be it. But not being anything in particular means that everything is available. That's freedom. That's liberation. So if the immediacy and practicality, let's say, of the moment that one finds themselves as is a moment of stopping and smelling the roses, well, then that's what's happening. But if it's a moment of turning on the news to check in with the never-ending soap opera of current events, as Dr. Hawkins called it, well, then that's what's happening. But none of it is like better than anything else, or righter or wronger, or it is this immediacy. It's like walking a balance beam. You know, Dr. Hawkins always used to say, the path is straight and narrow. And I kind of kept hearing all of the other sort of like yoga texts that I had read about expansiveness and, you know, as vast as the sky. And I'd be thinking straight and narrow, you know? But then there's the whole like, you don't go through the eye of the needle, you know, with all the weight. It is a devotion, as the best word I can come up with, a devotion to the current moment, a devotion, and a how to say it? Like you're planted there. That's where you reside, and inhabiting, an inhabitation, an inhabiting of the present moment. And really, it's good news because for a while, we have to employ some of these um, really amazing practices that, you know, whichever ones resonate with you. We talked about Ho'oponopono and, you know, I mean, it could be like a contemplative practice where, you know, you have just even a sentence that brings you back to current moment, best moment, present moment, only moment. So for a while, you know, we are anchoring, and we're in the boat as we're crossing the lake of self into that which is beyond self. But once we've reached a certain point, it really starts happening of its own accord. And all the rest becomes so uninteresting and so irrelevant, the attention doesn't glom onto it anymore. In fact, there are certain points along the journey where, I mean, you can seem like a real Bernadette Roberts is the only one who describes it the way that I would, but you can kind of seem like a real jerk because you just can't care. You just cannot care about anything that isn't immediately presenting. And it can make you seem, especially in today's world with how we're supposed to be informed about everything all the time, no matter what, it can, you know, it can be judged pretty harshly by a jury of our peers. There, there is so much we don't know. Everything that we think of as a problem, number one, the root of all disharmony, horror, hell, all of that is the belief in separation. One idea. The whole thing is a result of that. the good news is that this remembering, waking up, returning, whatever you experience it as and want to call it. I mean, here it was a remembering, a going home. I went home. Is happening. It's happening. And the circuits, let's call it, the circuitry for that realization and all that will come with it that we don't know right now, just like we were talking about last time with the, electricity wasn't absent from the fabric of reality, it just wasn't realized. There are the solutions, let's call them, the redemptions, the remedies are here. They're not realized. It's not a matter of it being absent from the fabric of reality. It's a matter of it not having been, there's no avenue for it. There's no instrument empty enough for it. Because all of the instruments of consciousness are full of themselves and their problems. Ugh. We gotta let it go. And at least as much as we can. I'm not suggesting, I don't know. I don't know what your way will be. But the allegiance, let's say, the priority, the devotion has to be the true nature, the essential nature, the truth. We can run around the block a little bit with all this stuff that is happening in the appearance world. And I'm not saying, and we do have to pay attention to what life is calling forward from us in the moment, you know. But to just spin around, spin around, spin around, spin around, spin around in an us versus them, right? They're wrong. You know, I really don't want to get into the, any kind of political format or anything like that, but it's like, I mean, Tim is always trying to draw me into current events, and that's fine for a certain amount of time. But I only need a certain amount of information to be able to discern what a level of consciousness, what level of consciousness a certain person is operating at. Like, how much information do we need? We can get it pretty readily. As Dr. Hawkins would say, you don't need a ton of information to identify a grizzly bear as a grizzly bear, or whatever it is a, a rose is a rose. This expression, although it is as sacred as any other, is operating under the influence, just like a drunk driver, under the influence of the spell of separation. Okay. So what are we going to do? Find that here and bring the truth to bear upon it. I am that I am. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I no longer need to see reality this way. Whatever word you would like to use. I mean, I've been using spirit lately, not using it, but it just comes to consciousness. It arises, but spirit. May I see through the eyes of spirit in this particular situation. I know I don't know. So please illuminate my vision. I know I don't know. Because all of the conditioning that has been inherited, uh, well, you know, that's kind of the fine print. It's like for a long time on this journey, as things begin to open up and relax, and there's capacity for questioning the thoughts and ideas and the identities and the fixations and the insistence, it's all kind of feels pretty personal, and you go through the DNA stuff and all that kind of stuff, but then it's collective. Like Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body. The whole vast ocean of the psyche. But like I said, I mean, the good news is one just millisecond of absolute presence. It's like Khenpo Lobsang told me when I was asking about power. Emptiness plus compassion. An empty compassion, not a Jennifer bestowing her compassion on those who need it. Well, we have to give up on that. Never going to work because Jennifer's going to decide, well, they deserve it and they don't, because that's what personhood does. It's the nature of personhood. And then, our ego structures hear something like that and start getting real squirrely, like, I've worked really hard to be myself, and my past has shaped me, and I'm gonna be who I am. I'm not giving up personhood. Uh, the funny thing is that the life itself enjoys its expressions in a way that the separate self never can. Never. Absolutely never. Because it's too separate to do so. It's too dissatisfied. So it isn't a giving up of individual expression. It's a shining of that as the divine mystery. So it would be like the sun. The sun is shiningness. It's a verb. It's not a subject or an object, okay? It's shining. It's a shining. And that shining has rays of shiningness. And somewhere along the line, these rays decided, well, I am a ray of my own accord. I create my own sun and my own shine, and I'm this individuated piece that has no, um, connection to the whole. And along with that comes intense fear because it is a complete falseness that can't be ever met in reality. And for the single ray to all of a sudden assume the responsibility of the shiningness itself causes great pain, great fear, and a terrible sense of not good enough that resides at the core of the ego. But if that same expression is lived as the shiningness itself, then although that particular ray will never be God, I mean, it is of and as God. And it's lived from there and as that. And the shiningness is, well, shining. It's lit up. The curtains are open. And there's a sense of joy, even in times of that call for great acts of courage. And this is one of those times that calls for great acts of courage. But there's a sense of, I am none other, of knowing home. I am none other than shiningness itself. I am the mechanism of shining. I am the ray, the delivery, the manifestation, I don't know if I'm catching it. So it's kind of an interesting mix of bringing just actively, intentionally bringing a sense of ease, a sense of ease, a sense of openness, but at the same time, kind of a vitality, a vital, like confidence and discipline in a way, not heavy-handed, get down on your knees on the hard pew and say 100 Hail Marys or whatever it is. Not like that, but a discipline, that a devotion. I like that word better because it's more of the heart. We were talking last time about it being the orientation of the life. The life has to reorient. And we can try to get out of that one for a while. Sharon and Mary will know what I'm talking about because we've been friends in a spiritual study group for a long time. And there's a story in the group of like taking a book that had the word God on the front or something on an airplane and hiding it because I'm not reading a book about God on an airplane. uh, I think most of us here now have matured beyond that, but we know it's good to remember, like, the reorientation sort of has to kind of be a decision, a choice. We can, and it doesn't matter. It's just totally innocent. There's no such thing as time. There's no such thing as the big race to get to the finish line, or we got to save the world in time, or any of that. So if we have a day where we're screaming and yelling and insisting on all kinds of things and like having a basic freak out from fear, well then, I mean, it doesn't mean that our whole life has like gone down the tubes, just because, I'm off the spiritual path now and I'm not good enough. And I mean, it can really feed the ego, right? You look at your general orientation of what your life has become and what your compass is and where your attention goes. And um, is it mostly pointing a finger during these times? Is it mostly pointing a finger, them, they, or is the majority of time a meditative, contemplative, prayerful devotion and movement towards greater and greater and greater freedom and liberation as this expression, because that's how we benefit the world. We can't be, and we know this. Everyone here knows this. I know I'm preaching to the choir a little bit, so bear with me. But we can't just look for peace out there. The peace that passeth all understanding is found here. And then it can be seen because it's realized. And it's not going to be seen until it's realized. Just like electricity. It can't happen. It doesn't work that way. We can only see and behave from and as the level of consciousness that we have, that we're operating from. It's like whatever piece of stained glass the ray is shining through, and it goes all the way from on planet Earth, like Dr. Hagen said, all the way from suicidal apathy to enlightenment, and all the levels of consciousness in between. So if the predominant stained glass, the predominant set of filters on that particular ray, it's a ray. It's a pure expression of the shiningness that is. It never will be anything other than that. Nothing stains it, nothing changes it, nothing. It is what it is at the heart of its being. But if it is obscure, if it has the obscuration of, like, say, the level of consciousness of anger predominantly, or the level of consciousness of victimhood predominantly, or the level of consciousness of I don't know, any of those, below the level of courage, then that's how the world will look. And that's how it will be. It will behave. It will behave as anger. It will behave as a victim. It will behave all those ways that separation behaves out of a sense of survival and fear. Narcissism, the whole bit. So it's critical, and we all know it. We all know this. Whether we know it directly or even just intellectually is fine. We know that the surrender of all of the beliefs and ideas and opinions and all of that that keep us separate is a priority if we want to recognize who we actually are and have that direct experience. It's not something you actually have, but uncover that direct experience. Let's put it that way. Bring to consciousness. I feel like the greatest obstacle, just having done this now, been a teacher for 12 years, and I feel like the greatest obstacle is it makes us uncomfortable. And we're just not really that great with that which makes us uncomfortable. I mean, we're looking around for like, isn't there a pill or a therapy or like a medicine or something, some way out of here, you know? Okay, maybe I know I can't use defenses and like really strong belief systems and stuff, but isn't there something else that could get me through it, you know? Oh, it's just some kind of particular thing we've inherited somehow and where we're just like uncomfortable. Uh, maybe for a little bit. But then we start looking around for something to fixate upon so that we aren't meeting in that vital, curious, open, kind way the uncomfortableness itself. And bringing presence to bear upon that to inform and permeate that. It just, and it may not for you, but from what I have seen, it just feels kind of like the Western intellectual mind is just too cynical and arrogant. It thinks that that's too magical somehow or not reasonable enough. You know, maybe it's happening somewhere as a miracle, but it can't happen here. But it's all very good news because we are what we are. We may not recognize it, or we're recognizing it at different levels of, you know, maturation. But we are what we are. We can't run from it. We can deny it till the end of time. But we are what we are, and at any point that can be recognized in a way that it no longer can be denied. And then it is the reorientation and the rewiring that goes along with that that gets a little tricky if we don't get together like this, have sanghas, meetings, teachers, teachings, because that reorientation and rewiring, I mean, it's a slippery slope because that separate self can resurrect at any given moment if it feels like it needs to save the day. And I mean, look at it right now. Good grief. Just read something here and then we can take our break. And did I want to read? It was something so beautiful. Hmm. Um, well, I'll find it on the break. Oh, here it is. It's Rumi. I am with you always means when you look for God, God is the look of your eyes, right? The shininess of the sun is the ray. That's what it is. I am with you always means when you look for God, God is the look of your eyes. In the thought of looking, nearer to you than yourself or things that have happened to you. There's no need to go outside. Be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. I thought maybe because it's springtime and all the snow is melting. God is the look of your eyes in the thought of looking and nearer to you than yourself or things that have happened to you. This moment arrives. It's freely given. It's here. It's here. It's uncaused, and it's nature is love. And the spell of separation has colored it into and formed it into pockets of, deep unconsciousness or relatively, healthy ego structures. But we're moving beyond separation. And we're kind of on the front lines in a certain sort of way. I know there are many indigenous people who have never left the wholeness of being. So I don't mean to um, deny that. But just as, a certain subset of humanity that is mostly bought into separation, we're remembering, we're coming home. And it's a journey. It's a process. It's a process of dissolution, deconstruction, and stripping away. But it's like cleaning a window, and maybe we're scared to see what's on the other side of all that grime, but the view is great. Oh. Okay, let's take a break. Thank you.